Tonight, the head of ISIS dead and the world a safer place, but there's still a lot of questions about the raid that killed al-Baghdadi. And there's also a lot of politics at play, as usual. Then, as local news continues to struggle with layoffs and budget cuts, we're joined by two lawmakers with the bill aimed at trying to turn things around. Also, the very latest on impeachment, including another administration official defying a subpoena. Now, that battle, it's heading to the federal court. Evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you for joining us this Monday night. And we begin this evening with a raid that killed the head of ISIS and a behind-the-scenes look at how it all went down. But as usual, there's a lot of political controversies involved. The mission? Capture or kill the world's most dangerous terrorist. And the Delta Force sent in, leaving only this behind.
Abu Bakr Al-Baghdadi is dead. He was the founder and leader of ISIS.
They were on the ground in an area deep inside al-Qaeda-controlled territory for roughly 2 hours. 8 Chinook helicopters flying in at 5 p.m. Saturday night, taking gunfire along the way. On the ground, blowing a hole through Baghdadi's hideout, then using a dog to chase him before cornering him and 3 young children he had taken with him in a dead-end tunnel where he set off a suicide vest, killing them all.
He died like a dog. He died like a coward. The world is now a much safer place.
The president declaring victory on the man who in 2014 declared himself the leader of ISIS and became the face of evil, releasing horrific videos that included setting people on fire and beheadings. Among his thousands of victims, Kyla Muller, Steven Sotloff, Peter Kassig, and James Foley. Families thankful that al-Baghdadi is gone, but Foley's parents warning this isn't the end.
This will be a blow to them, but we've got to be ready for retaliation.
Lawmakers also want to know what's next, requesting a briefing after the president didn't inform the minority party ahead of the operation, but did brief the Russians.
I've watched Adam Schiff leak. He's a corrupt politician. He's a leaker like nobody's ever seen before.
But Thomas Friedman in today's Times says the story of Baghdadi and U.S. intelligence is far from over. Friedman points out the hypocrisy when it comes to the president. Here's part of his piece. Quote, President Trump was effusive in his praise for the U.S. intelligence agencies who found and tracked al-Baghdadi. Those same intelligence agencies that he hailed as heroes for tracking down Baghdadi are the same deep state, the same agencies and whistleblowers whom the White House press secretary, Stephen Grisham, just smeared as radical, unelected bureaucrats waging war on the Constitution. Well, Joel Rubin, he joins us now. He was Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Obama administration. Joel, thanks for a few minutes. And it can't be minimized, the importance of the success of this mission, specifically getting rid of a guy like Baghdadi, right?
Yeah, Richard, absolutely. It's always a good day when the leader of a terrorist organization like the Islamic State is taken out, no doubt about it. But the problem with what we're looking at right now is that the president really squelched a lot of political goodwill that he could have earned yesterday to keep the fight going in a direction that's going to ensure that we don't get hit here at home and that our allies don't get hit in Europe and in the Middle East. So we've seen this movie before, to be blunt. We have oftentimes seen leaders of organizations, be it Osama bin Laden or Abu Musab al-Zarqawi in Iraq about a decade ago, get taken out. But there is a next day. So the president needed to be thinking about the next day, and it didn't seem like he was yesterday.
And I want to get to some of the rhetoric of spiking the football as he did in that address, but inadvertently, he may have confirmed some of the very reasons why this isolationist policy doesn't make sense, in that, first off, he made the mission harder, a mission that took months of planning here, by pulling out as impulsive as he did and put more folks at risk in the process. And now with all that treasure trove, Joel, of intel that he got, there are already posts that have been since abandoned that you would have thought with actual intelligence, we could have gotten a lot more guys that we found out about in the raid yesterday. It's going to be that much harder. And finally, he needed help. He needed the Kurds. He needed a whole bunch of folks to be participatory. And as you said, the day after, convincing those folks from jump to help us out with it's going to be harder and harder.
Yeah, you really hit on all the points. And imagine this, for example, if about a year ago when he said that he was going to pull out of Syria, and he made that announcement in a very intemperate moment, and Jim Mattis, the Secretary of Defense, quit as a result of that. And then the president pulled it back. But imagine if he had gotten what he wanted a year ago. We would never have gotten al-Baghdadi. We would have been gone from the scene, and this guy would have been running around free today. So the president's vision for capturing terrorist organization leaders, for going after the networks, is completely at odds with the strategy that was successful yesterday, that was put in place by President Obama and carried through for the first couple of years by his team. And this team largely was respected across the board. And now the president's decapitated that team. So where is he taking us? What's the next step? And we've seen it with our allies, the Kurds, who delivered actionable intelligence over the last half year on al-Baghdadi. We're seeing what he's done to them. He's unleashed the gates of hell onto their population, and they've been ethnically cleansed in a significant chunk of northern Syria out of it by the Turks. That's not a very good friendship there.
Joel, for folks who missed it, we played a little bit before, but I want to play a few more bites. This, the president yesterday sharing with the American public about the raid and Baghdadi.
He died after running into a dead-end tunnel, whimpering and crying and screaming all the way. The thug who tried so hard to intimidate others spent his last moments in utter fear, in total panic and dread. They were very frightened puppies. He died like a dog. He died like a coward.
Okay, listen, Baghdadi, one of the worst guys, the world a better place not having him in that, but contrast that to your old boss, where there wasn't a victory lap. He tried to tone it down. He didn't get into talking about all the blown up body parts, etc. There was a reason for that, not just demeanor. I mean, you don't want to inflame certain populations. It almost serves as a recruiting video.
So there's two frames for this, Richard. There's the tactical and the strategic. And on the tactical level, you're absolutely right. What happens now is that American soldiers and sailors, servicemen and women, living and working in Muslim communities right now are embarrassed and concerned because Muslim partners, be it in Saudi Arabia or Egypt or Qatar or Afghanistan, have just heard the commander-in-chief liken another Muslim to a dog. And that's deeply offensive. And that's the kind of language that David Petraeus years ago would call out. And when there was a video circulated before the Benghazi killing that was very offensive to Muslims. We're operating in their lands. We need to figure out how to engage and work with our allies there while we're going after a common enemy. So that's the tactical. And on the strategic, Barack Obama was thinking about the day after. And it goes to what we were talking about earlier. He brought a bipartisan mentality to that victory in getting bin Laden. He called George W. Bush. He spoke in language that was patriotic and unifying, understanding that this is a long struggle that would outlive him. What Donald Trump did was he essentially pushed away potential allies, and he pushed away people in Congress like Nancy Pelosi, who, for example, has been in Congress 30 years. She was on the Intel Committee for a couple of decades. She has been fighting against Islamic terrorism and people like Baghdadi for a lot longer than Donald Trump has. And to push her away when she has a central role, it just makes no sense from an American national security perspective.
And just to that point, is it just optics or protocol, or does it matter that the president consulted with the Russians, but he didn't consult with a single Democrat on the Hill before the raid?
The president needed to talk to Congress, and I'll explain that one a little bit more. When I was in the State Department, Barack Obama was president. John Boehner was the leader of the House of Representatives, the Republican, and I worked that relationship every day. Partisanship stopped at the water's edge. we would brief John Boehner and other senior Republican leaders on critical national security issues all the time because they have a central role. They appropriate the funds, they conduct the oversight, they ask harder questions than many people on the inside of the executive branch are able to ask. They're like an extra filter of knowledge that is looking at what the executive branch is doing. So you need them to operate well, and they're part of the U.S. government. And so excluding them weakens our actual ability to do the job effectively. And then with the Russians, it's a deep insult. He not only thanked Russia for not shooting our aircraft down, then he thanked Bashar al-Assad, who had nothing to do with this. And so it brings up a lot of concerns. Why is he thanking Russia and Syria and not talking to Democrats? Who are his real allies in this? And these are deep, dark questions that people don't like to think about, but certainly it makes Vladimir Putin look good, and it makes Nancy Pelosi look very, very frustrated and outside the loop, which is bad for our country.
Joel Rubin, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Richard.
All right, everyone. When we come back, we will switch gears from international news to local news. We're going to talk about the demise of hyperlocal stations and newspapers. But two lawmakers in New York, they have a plan to help revive the local media landscape and even help it thrive. They'll join me after the break.